Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this week's Furman Football Weekly with head coach Clay Hendricks. Joining Coach Hendricks in today's press conference, running back Gavin Hall, defensive lineman Caldwell Bussey. Paladins coming off of the loss at Watford last week, returning home for back-to-back weeks, beginning this Saturday with a homecoming matchup against the Citadel, and we'll fill you in on the broadcast info at the end. But as always, we'll ask Coach Hendricks to make an opening statement, and let Scott Keeler ask question number one today.
Thank you, Dan. Again, appreciate you guys being here. Certainly disappointed with the outcome of Saturday. Somebody asked me about happiness the other day. I'm not a very happy guy right now just because I'm not doing a good enough job getting our guys to go play full quarters and execute at a high level. And yet, I'm not letting it steal my joy. I just still believe in this group, and they're still a fun group to go to work every day. We'll go out there today. I think we'll have great practice. But you just got you learn and you learn, especially learning games like Saturday. You got to go play at a high level. Offensively, you cannot turn the ball over like we have. We've gotten into, I'm sure I have probably in my many years. Been weeks where you had 8 in 2 weeks, 8 turnovers. It's hard to beat anybody doing that. Those same guys that played at a really high level this year. So we got to go back to work and continue to do the things that give us a chance to go execute at a high level. And I think defensively, really the last 2 weeks kind of been the tale of two halves. Look, Saturday, I think second half, I think they got 2 first downs. Plays didn't change, players didn't change. Our demeanor changed a little bit, our mindset changed a little bit. Obviously we got to quit putting our guys in some tough spots, offensively and defensively. Thought we were a little better in the kicking game. And then, the week before it was kind of the opposite. We played well the first half, didn't play very well on defensively in the second half. So, this week, certainly new challenge, different kind of challenge against our oldest rival. So I think our guys will be looking forward to it, being back home. Hopefully have a great crowd here for homecoming. And, I think our guys will be excited to go play. So with that, we'll take any questions you may have.
Coach, you haven't played as well as you hoped to in the last 2 weeks, obviously. You played really well 3 weeks ago, last time at home. It just seemed like everything that could go wrong, like Trey played really well until the first interception. You didn't have any penalties, I think, per quarter and a half. That first penalty was a killer. It just seems like everything that could go wrong last 2 weeks is going wrong. Is that stuff, I know you make your own luck too, but can you speak to how it just rains and pours?
I don't know. Obviously Trey's been really, Trey, first 4 or 5 games played really well. To be honest with you, look Saturday, he did a lot of really good things. Now, did some things that were kind of, like I always say, kind of catastrophic, things that happen, decisions you make. Guys make plays against you. It goes back, it's kind of like the injury thing. You got to control what you can control. And, we'll continue to look at what we're asking him to do, what kind of decisions we're asking him to make. It certainly doesn't help that I sit there and look that he's missing 80 catches Saturday. To think that doesn't matter in a little bit of who we are right now offensively. I looked, really in 7 games, Jaquise only played. Actually, he really only played, I guess, 5 because he only played 4 games against Western. Ethan and Evan both only played 4 games. So we've done a lot of good things with those guys, even some without them. So, we'll look at what we're doing. Trey, he's certainly got to play better. And I don't think we got anybody cares any more than he does on our team. But no, he made some fantastic throws, some good decisions, and again, we'll just keep looking. Each week's a little different with what people present you, but what we saw, Western's a little bit defensively. Some things they give you, the back half doesn't change a whole lot, but it's not much different than what we've seen lots of weeks. You just got to be able to go execute at a high level when it matters. And then, you got to always try to find a way to put those bad ones behind you. When you're an offensive lineman, it's a bad block. And if nobody maybe even may see it, but you got to learn from it and move on to the next play. That's what we'll continue to focus on.
Caldwell, it's been a little bit tougher for you guys to get pressure up front in the past couple games. Do you see kind of some adjustments that teams are making to you guys?
I think that kind of teams have started to focus more on Josh Stoneking. He's had a really good year, and I think when teams see that, they want to send more guys to his side, whether that be a chip or the slide. I think that means it kind of falls back on us as the other, group of defensive linemen. We just got to get more production in the pass rush.
Coach, Trey is a very talented quarterback, and what do you feel the things he needs to work on this week to get ready for the matchup versus the Citadel? And do you think it's also part to the timing of the wide receiver group, considering the injuries you had to deal with in that area?
Well, you always want your best players to play, and some of those guys are our best players. And we actually hadn't been bad health-wise, so we just got wiped out one group. I think the other thing we had 6 scholarship receivers out. There were a couple guys that played all year that we thought we'd have. But Landon James, couldn't be prouder of that guy. Stepping up last week. Kerry King, has actually been kind of played on a bum ankle. I think Kerry finally has gotten well. Devin Hester continues to be productive. So, we got guys there, and I'm hopeful we're going to get these guys back. We'll just kind of have to see when it's going to be, and is it this week? Maybe. We'll just have to see. Continue to focus on the run game, but you know what? I think we can all do our job better. Again, Trey's one of those when he has a bad day or everybody sees it. I think we're taking some sacks that we should never take, which means we got to block better. But there are also sometimes, depending on the pressure, they bring one more than we can block. We gave us that the first boot we ran. I always, for me, you should never take a sack on the boot, throw it away, because we just, again, it seems that we've been doing a bunch of first and longs, or second and longs after first down play. Did a little better with the penalty stuff, the other day. But again, all you can do is go out there and keep working, keep putting yourself in those positions. And, you think about what he did a year ago against the Citadel as a true freshman, and you find some things that he's more comfortable doing. And we'll continue to focus on that, because he certainly has a lot of talent. He can make all those throws. He knows he's got a really good. He knows where he's going with football. I think sometimes just got to make better decisions.
For both Gavin and Caldwell, you guys have been on the road 4 out of the last 5 games. You played 3 of the next 4 at home. What's it been like being on the road? How tough is that for you? And is it going to be nice to be home? Gavin, you can start.
It's definitely tough being on the road. I feel like when you have to go on a road trip and handle all the things that goes with that. But I think being back home this week is going to be huge for us. Like you said, we played well at home. We played at a high level, and I think it'll be good to get back to our identity back at home and get back in the win column and that nature and doing that. So
road trips are fun. It's a tight group of guys that go. We don't bring more than 60, 70 guys, but having the extra 40 guys on the sideline with us, with that extra energy, and the home crowd also helping us. That'll definitely help us this week being at home.
Yeah, you played both quarterback and running back in high school and had a lot of success. Furman, obviously, you played a good bit last year as a true freshman, made all freshman team, and then you moved into starting role this year. Do you reckon that guy to your left will let you throw a pass or two? You've already shown you can throw a touchdown pass. You threw for 1,800 yards and like 18 TDs in high school, I think. Is any of that in the cards for you?
Touchdown first.
yeah, 2-1 last year.
Hunter's good. He can't remember that.
No, I say through one.
Oh, okay.
Mercer got it.
I mean, we try to throw a wrinkle in every week, whether it be me or somebody else. So, I mean, we'll see what it is this week, and, if it is me, we'll let it ride, throw a touchdown. So.
I got to ask you, as far as your running style, is there an NFL guy that you really admire, think the most of, like pattern yourself after, hey, I like to be like that guy, or you just want to be Gavin Hall?
No doubt. I mean, I have a couple guys I look up to. Definitely Jahmyr Gibbs, the speed he plays with and the patience he plays with, and then Cam Scatterbrough, the power he plays with, the downhill running. Just kind of being able to do both for me and learning how to blend them together is a big thing for me. So.
This is for Gavin and Coach, just your perspectives on the running game and going back to ETSU. It looked like it was starting to come to life a little bit, but it's I guess the best way to determine would be it's a work in progress at this juncture of the season. Gavin, from your running back perspective, just talk about it, and then Coach, if you'd follow up.
Yeah, I feel like we're definitely getting better. We're stacking weeks on top of it. I'm starting to get more comfortable with the O-line and where they're going to be on certain plays, and I think that's vice versa. And I feel like week in and week out, we're getting better in that nature. So I feel like it's going to keep stacking throughout the season as we keep going. We're going to keep getting better and better at it.
Yeah, I agree. I said all year we're close, and it's been getting better. I thought even the first half last week, if you truly look at it and go look at the numbers, and then obviously, we played really poorly there at the end of the second. We got in a hole, and we got into throw mode. I think, being an old OL guy, when you do not have a dual threat, you're not a dual threat team as a quarterback. That's not who we are. It creates lots of challenges, in the run game. Now, love the ability we can do in the pass game. You hopefully they offset each other a little bit, but I think we're continuing to make progress there. I think we've been close. We had a couple of explosion plays last week in the run game. Didn't have CJ a good bit of the second half. But I think he's back fine. I think we'll have him ready to go. So, we're continuing to work at it, looking at different things we got to be able to do, and but you get into that. Throw only, there's not a whole lot of opportunities. I don't think there are probably tons and tons of even runs that we had in the second half. We got to a point where we were going to catch up doing that. So, but we'll continue to work at it.
Coach, I don't think it was as big an issue Saturday as maybe at Western, but field position, and obviously that's important key. And one thing that seems to, you had some success early on in the season, but maybe not as much lately, is kick returns. And I just wonder how you kind of tweak something like that, which is, it's not like offense or defense, and do you tell the guy, hey, if you're at a certain spot, just take the touchback, or?
Yeah, we told him that once last week too, so. Well, I think, I think we've been very average in kickoff returns. Now, Devin popped the first game, and, in a return, you can go look at stats and excuse the stats a little bit. God, I think we've been as close, it's kind of like the run game. We've had some steal shots of, where we should have run, and again, one hat there. Kevin Eastern last week, first game he's ever played in, we put him back there. I thought he did a fantastic job. He did fair catch one. In fact, I asked him on the one, I said, Kevin, how deep were you? He said, I think that was 2 or 3 yards. I think he was closer to 5. And he brought it out, and I said, man, that was a lot of hard work to get to the 24 when you could have thrown your hand up and got to the 25, without a bunch of stuff going on. But we'll continue to work at it. Each week's a little different based on the kicker. I think the guy last week had kicked it everywhere. So, it's a little bit different plan. And I agree with Western, the punt game. We were not very good, and they kept flipping the field on us. Their guy punted it exceptionally well. We didn't. I thought Saturday we covered better. In fact, he made something big. He did as good a job as the gunners we've had anybody do all year. That Ian kicked the ball better. But still, it seems like we're the ball punt number 2. That was a huge play in the game. It shouldn't have happened. We should have caught the ball. We weren't deep enough with our alignment. You don't want a ball kicked over your head. Sometimes the guy's gonna boom one. But we let him roll out on the 2-yard line, and we should have caught that ball. And from an offensive perspective, it really changes things. And then this week they got a great punter. I mean, he's a great punter. He's one of the best in the country. Has been. So how many times do you truly get to return it? We have pressured a lot of people. I think we've been really close to getting some punts. We'll continue to work at both. Coach Spangler does a great job of that. We're getting better there. Want to make a difference. You playing in a group this week. I know that 2 years ago here they faked a field goal and scored on it, and they onside kicked the second half. That I know we got and recovered. They tried to fake a field goal on us last year, which was a big play in the game. So we're fully expecting. I think a little bit. I got 2 guys on their staff who are NFL court special teams guys. So I think that's a little bit of who they are. So we have to be ready for that on every kicking situation.
Gavin, one of the things I think you guys have done really well this year is catch the ball out of backfield. Now you have, you know, multiple receivers out. Is there more of an onus on you guys to kind of make plays in the passing game?
Yeah, we talked about it. We always want to be dynamic in the run game, the pass game, whether it's making plays out of the backfield, pass blocking, or any of that stuff. And I think we just have to step up and help that receiver group out, whether that be blocking for a longer amount of time, catching balls out of the backfield, getting in the slot, that kind of stuff. So I feel like it's definitely a point of emphasis this week for us.
And Caldwell defensively has been kind of tough the last couple of weeks. So where do you think you are, and what are the things you think you need to improve on going forward?
We are a very good half football team. We play a very good half, we play very bad, and I think consistency is the biggest thing we need to work on, being able to play the whole game.
Caldwell, just building on that a little bit, 7 games in, you guys have seen, you know, different variations of offenses. And this week against the Citadel, they ran for, I believe, 278 against Western Carolina. They're obviously, I think, primarily built on the run game, power running game, whatever. What do you like to play against? What do you guys, is it primarily run and get after the quarterback when they sign a pass, or what, you know, how do you approach this week versus, you know, maybe a couple weeks ago?
So in comparison to like an air raid type school like a Western or Sanford, I love playing run teams personally. I think our strength is in the run game, and I think we'll match up very well against them.
Coach, you have seen as many or more Furman Citadel games as anybody who's going to be involved this week. This guy over here has seen a few as well. And you know, we always talk, people ask who's Furman's rival. Well, for the younger fan base, it might have been last week's opponent, Wofford, but there's a group at both schools that this is the game. If you were a fan, would this be the game?
I would probably say that. I mean, just, you know, I came here in the fall of 1982, and in fact, I told our team the other day, they'll tell you, I don't talk to them a lot about that stuff, and a lot of those people that I considered rivals, the rivalry we had with Georgia Southern, and obviously we don't play them anymore. We don't have Blatchy, Marshall. You know, I came here in '82, and I was a scout team guy all year, and we went through the whole year. I think maybe that's when we played the last game of the year. I think we should have, you know, and then that got changed. But I remember getting that last week of the season. I don't know if we'd won the conference championship. We still had to beat them to win the conference championship. We kind of beat the conference champions, and it was something. You know, all those coaches, is something. Their demeanor changed that week. You know, I remember going out to practice, and they were different guys than they were. It had been all year, and you know, I think they had lost down there the year before after having won the conference championship, and you know, at that time, Coach Baker was still there. We'd left here to go there, and you know, so it got ingrained in me pretty quick by how important this game was. You know, there's I know tons of Sioux people in Greenville. So you know, it's been a great rivalry. You know, 100. I don't know where we at. 105 this year. I think it was low mid-hundreds there. I think this is 32 of them for me. So, no, I you know, I've been through the wishbone days. I remember in 88 and 90, two of the best environments I ever remember being in Paladins Stadium. You know, though that and probably the Georgia Southern 04 game, you know, kind of ones that just stand out to me. They're both for conference championships. So, no, so I'd probably say that. You know, if I had to just say it, so yeah, and so I don't do much talking to our group. I talked to them a little bit about it on Sunday when we came out here after our black practice on Sunday. So yeah, it's no, don't like losing this group.
Math has never been my strong suit. I was great until they put the alphabet in it. But just listening to you, 32 out of 105, that's roughly 1/3 of the games that ever been played here. So should I say that out loud?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So Coach Siddle plays 2 quarterbacks, one left-handed, one right-handed. Does that make any difference?
No, you know, it's interesting. You've watched them this year. They've done. Maurice has done a really good job since taking over there. They've kind of evolved a little bit. It's funny, they've kind of even evolved throughout this year, when you watch them in the last few weeks, they've really become a wishbone team in the gun, but it's not really there's not a lot of triple option. There is some, it's a lot of double option. QB run both quarterbacks, and I think the fact that they've got two guys that they feel, because those two guys, I think they both average 50 yards a game rushing. They'll change up some schemes, different things. So I think defensively, in fact, I gave them that little talk, before really probably I've even seen a ton of their stuff, but it's one of those games defensively, you gotta be willing to get in the fight. And it's that kind of game, they're physical up front. Both the quarterbacks are good size, but they have two big backs. And certainly they're gonna, they don't throw it a lot, but when they do, it's usually somebody's made a mistake and turned somebody loose. So I think Stark's having a good plan. We've got a bunch of guys on our staff that this is not their first rodeo with that kind of style of play. Coach Spangler's time at Georgia Southern, because it's a lot of the same philosophies within it. So, and I lived in that world for a long time. So it starts with having a good plan. You don't have a good plan, they can embarrass you. They've done that to a couple of people the last couple of weeks. And they've changed stuff. They'll change some stuff, I'm sure, this week. We'll have to make adjustments, but it's just some basic principles that it does force you to be assignment sound. But you got to be assignment sound. You got to attack. And I think that's where we got to play. And I think we like to play that way. But again, you have to be disciplined enough. That guy, your safety, and he comes blocking, he keeps coming to you, keeps coming to you, keeps coming to you. You keep coming up, and he decides he runs by you. Next thing you know, you're throwing one over your head, and that's kind of who they are. And they're playing really good defense too, so it's going to be a challenge in lots of ways for us.
Coach, before your time here, you also, it's Furman said that at the Stone Mitchell goal last time, where there was somehow 200,000 people at Spring Stadium. Top Furman people over the years. It looks like, looking at their scores and their style of offense, obviously you want to play a full game because that's been an issue, but a good start would probably go a long way toward making this a really happy Saturday. In terms of if you were able to.
I think
score the last two first quarters, and just talk about getting off to a good start.
I think that helped you every Saturday. We were a really good starting team, especially offensively on the year, and hadn't been as good the last couple of weeks, and largely offensive because of the turnover stuff. Well, I thought we played really well early. We talk about the Western game, when we got after the quarterback, we had 2 sacks early on, and they couldn't run the ball, and then between that, we let them throw a ball over our heads. It kind of changed. So I think it starts. They're not going to be the 2-minute team that's not going to be their strength. But it's going to be like all the conference games are. You go out watching them. Watching Wofford last week. First week 22-21. They probably should have beaten Western the week before. I just think I think all these games in our league, 4 or 5 plays are really making the difference, in the game. And, now unless you turn it over a bunch and then it gets out of whack. But, I think 4 or 5 plays, you never know when those are going to be. So you got to play them all, and get a chance to take advantage of. But our guys are confident, like I said, a year ago, we didn't have a lot of confidence because we did play very good throughout the whole year. Even we were able to get some wins. We've played some really good football at times with the same guys, and hopefully we get healthy, and that will help us. But again, we got to control things we can control, and we got to play hard, smart for 4 quarters, on both sides of the ball, and that's what we're shooting for.
Coach, I'll let you close us out as usual with a final thought. But inside that, is there anything you can tell us about the injured players? Any updates you can share?
No, we're getting better. I don't know. I don't really want to, kind of let know who we're playing, but give any insight to that. But they're getting better. It's like somebody asked me, I said, "Oh, we'll get them back." It's just how soon we get them back. It gives us a chance to get some other guys back there as well. So, we practiced today is really our first, other than Sunday. We went Sunday light. They're out there. Monday's our off day for our players, and then we'll go out there. We go a little earlier today at meetings this morning, so we'll come see who's out there. And I think there's some guys we'll continue to be smart with. I'd much rather have them Saturday than Tuesday. You know, we wanna, you know, as a coach, it's that line between getting guys work, getting prepared. Some guys maybe need more reps than other guys do. But now hopeful, so we'll see there going forward. Again, we'll be a lot better if we got all of our guys. Okay, yeah. Well, and just for that, no, I appreciate you being here. We get excited to be back home. It does seem like we've been on the road. You know, probably our two toughest trips, two of the better games we played on the road. You know, so you know, we'll be back homecoming this weekend. Great part. I'm sure they'll have a great crowd, and it should be a fun day.
All right, Coach, thank you. I just remind everyone that it's a 2 o'clock kick here at Paladins Stadium. The game will be broadcast via ESPN Plus. From a radio standpoint, we will hit the air with the Pepsi pregame at 12:30. We would much prefer you to be here for homecoming against the Citadel on Saturday. Thank you to Coach Clay Hendricks, to Gavin Hall and Caldwell Bussey, and that will wrap us up for this week. I'm Dan Scott. God bless you. So long, everybody.